What if I told you that somewhere deep inside you exists a power so profound, so quietly transformative, that once you awaken it, no heartbreak, rejection, or fear could ever take it away from you? This is not about wishful thinking or shallow affirmations. It's about the kind of self-love that Carl Jung discovered when he began exploring the most hidden layers of the human psyche. A kind of love that isn't built on ego, but on truth. Today, I want to take you there, to that sacred place within yourself where real strength is born. Because this isn't about repeating, "I am enough," in front of the mirror, while secretly doubting every word. It's about rebuilding the relationship you have with yourself from the ground up, the way you speak to your soul, the way you stand by yourself when life tests you, the way you stop abandoning who you are just to be accepted. Jung once said that every human being carries an entire universe within, a vast inner cosmos he called the unconscious. Most people think of the unconscious as a dusty basement of forgotten memories, but Jung saw it differently. He saw it as a living, breathing force, a silent voice that's always trying to guide you back to your truth. Have you ever felt that strange pull in your gut before making a big decision? That whisper that says, "Don't go there," or the sudden spark that fills you with excitement when you imagine a dream you've buried for too long? That's your unconscious speaking. It speaks through intuition, through emotion, through dreams, through everything you've been taught to ignore. And here's the secret. When you stop listening to it, you disconnect from your essence. You lose your compass. But when you finally begin to pay attention, everything changes. You start to build a self-love that doesn't crumble when others withdraw their affection. You begin to feel grounded in your own skin. Picture this. You're in a relationship that seems fine from the outside. Words of affection, promises of love. Yet deep down, something feels off. You feel yourself shrinking. You stop laughing the way you used to. Your dreams get quieter. Or maybe at work, you take on everything because you can't say no, afraid to disappoint, afraid to be seen as less. Jung would tell you, this is not random. This is your unconscious screaming for alignment. That discomfort you feel, it's not weakness. It's your soul trying to tell you that you've been betraying yourself for too long. Those knots in your chest, that quiet exhaustion, they are signals, not flaws. And the moment you start reading those signals, instead of suppressing them, you begin to heal. Jung called one of his most profound discoveries the shadow. It's the part of you you've buried, your anger, your jealousy, your fear, your sadness. The emotions you've been told are bad or unacceptable. But here's the truth. What you hide doesn't disappear. It grows stronger in the dark. The shadow is the version of you that only wants one thing: to be acknowledged. Maybe you feel envy when someone succeeds. It's not that you're bad, it's that your shadow contains a repressed desire to shine too, but you've never allowed yourself to. Or maybe you get furious when someone ignores you, because deep inside, your shadow still fears being invisible. The shadow isn't your enemy. It's your unhealed self asking to be seen. And when you stop fighting it and instead bring it into the light, something incredible happens. You stop fighting yourself. Take a deep breath right now. Ask yourself quietly, what in my life feels heavy? What part of me have I been refusing to look at? Don't try to fix it. Just notice it. Because this moment, this awareness, is where real transformation begins. Jung believed that self-love isn't about perfection, it's about wholeness. And wholeness means embracing both your brilliance and your brokenness. Think of the times you let people cross your boundaries because you were afraid of losing them. Think of the times you kept silent, even when your heart screamed, no. Every one of those moments is your shadow calling out for your attention. But Jung teaches us that healing begins when you start to take that power back, when you honor your own inner voice. The next time you feel that quiet resistance inside you, say it out loud, even if your voice shakes. No, I can't do that today. It may sound small, but to your unconscious, it means everything. It says, I exist. I matter. Jung also spoke of projections, the way we unconsciously see in others what we refuse to see in ourselves. When someone fascinates you or triggers you, it's rarely about them. It's about you. You might admire someone's confidence without realizing that what attracts you is your own unclaimed strength. Or maybe you dislike someone for being arrogant, not noticing that part of you wishes you had the same boldness to speak your truth. Every emotion you project onto others is a mirror showing you another piece of your soul. That's what true self-love looks like, taking responsibility for your inner world. It's realizing that no one else can heal you, validate you, or save you. You must become your own healer, your own guide, your own anchor. And sometimes that healing doesn't come in silence, but in chaos. Have you ever noticed how life tends to fall apart right before something inside you awakens? The arguments, the endings, the confusion. They're not punishment. Jung would say they're the language of the unconscious. The storm is not trying to destroy you. It's trying to cleanse you. Chaos is the fire that burns away the false layers so your real self can emerge. When everything feels like it's collapsing, ask yourself, what truth is this chaos trying to show me? Write it down. Don't censor it. Jung used a practice called active imagination, a dialogue between the conscious mind and the unconscious. Try it. Let your inner voice speak freely, without fear. You'll be amazed by what surfaces, by the wisdom you already carry within. So far, we've discovered that self-love isn't something given by others. It's something you build through awareness. By listening to your unconscious, facing your shadow, and embracing your projections, you begin to feel whole again. But there's one final step Jung insisted on: the art of letting go. You cannot fill a cup that's already full. And if your life is overflowing with people, routines, or fears that no longer align with who you are, how can you make room for what truly nourishes you? Think about it. How many times have you stayed in situations that drained you because you were afraid of change? How many times have you clung to something that had already ended? Jung believed that these attachments are not just about fear. They're the unconscious telling you, you deserve more. Individuation, Jung's term for becoming your true self, is the sacred journey of releasing everything that isn't authentically you. Imagine your life as a closet packed with clothes that no longer fit. You keep them out of habit, out of nostalgia, out of guilt. But deep down, you know they're not yours anymore. Letting go isn't loss, it's liberation. Take another deep breath. Think of one thing, one relationship, one belief that's been weighing on you. Now imagine what your life would feel like if you released it. That lightness, that quiet sense of peace. That's the soul remembering its natural state. Sometimes we think that holding on means strength, but in truth, the greatest strength lies in surrender. Every time you let go of what no longer serves you, you reclaim a piece of your power. And as you do, life begins to align with your true essence. You start attracting people, situations, and opportunities that reflect your worth instead of your wounds. So, if you've made it this far, know this: something inside you is awakening. The same force that Jung spent his life studying, the union of shadow and light, is now stirring within you. You are not broken. You are becoming whole. And once you truly see that, nothing and no one will ever have the power to take your light away again. But Jung teaches us something profound, that your energy is sacred. It is the invisible thread that sustains your peace, your dreams, and your very existence. It is not something to be scattered carelessly or given to anyone who demands it. Protecting your energy is not selfishness. It is a declaration of self-respect, an act of love toward your own soul. Every time you say no to something that drains you, you are saying yes to your inner light. So, the next time someone asks you for something that makes you uneasy, pause before responding. You can simply say, "I'll think about it and get back to you." It's gentle, yet powerful. It's not a rejection if you're not ready to say no, but it gives you space. Space to listen to your inner voice instead of reacting automatically. Jung would say that in that pause, you are beginning a dialogue with your unconscious, a sacred moment where the deeper part of you begins to speak, guiding you toward what truly serves your soul. Try it this week. Notice how different it feels when you give yourself permission to pause, to breathe, to check in with your truth before giving away your time or your energy. Small actions like these plant the seeds of deep self-love. Now let's talk about relationships, the most powerful mirrors we encounter. Jung believed that every person we attract reflects something within us. The people we choose to keep close are living symbols of our inner world. If you are surrounded by those who support you, who celebrate you, who help you grow, it's because something inside you already honors your own worth. But if your life feels surrounded by conflict, criticism, or uncertainty, it's not punishment, it's a message. Your unconscious is asking you to look inward, to bring awareness to the parts of yourself that are still asking for healing. Many people stay in relationships that no longer nurture them simply because they fear loneliness. But Jung would say that loneliness often appears not because we lack others, but because we've lost connection with our true self. So how do you know when it's time to let go? Jung would whisper, listen to your intuition. Listen to your body. If being with someone leaves you feeling small, anxious, or emotionally drained, that's your soul's way of saying, this isn't for you. It's not misfortune or coincidence. It's your inner wisdom guiding you toward freedom. And that's where the magic begins. When you release what no longer nourishes you, the universe notices. It starts to align itself with your new frequency. When you choose yourself, when you honor your own boundaries, everything around you begins to transform. Take a moment now. Think of one relationship that feels heavy. Ask yourself quietly, does this person help me become more of who I am, or do they make me hide? Don't rush to answer. Just allow the question to sit in your heart. Because self-love that cannot be broken is built on the courage to walk away from what dims your light and move toward what allows it to shine. Now let's move to something just as important. Dreams. Jung believed our dreams, both the ones that come at night and the ones we hold in our hearts, are direct messages from the unconscious. They are not random fantasies. They are the soul's way of reminding us why we are here. Have you ever longed for something deeply, to create, to travel, to begin again, but abandoned it because of fear or others' opinions? When we silence those dreams, we are saying no to the essence of who we are. And every no to your essence quietly erodes your self-worth. So tonight, before you sleep, try this small ritual. Write down the question: what desire of mine have I forgotten? Don't judge the answer. Don't analyze it. Just write whatever surfaces. Jung used to see dreams, whether nocturnal or waking, as doorways to the unconscious. They reveal the parts of ourselves that still want to live. Let this practice reconnect you with that spark that once made your heart feel alive. These small acts are sacred. They are how you remember who you truly are. And when you remember, your energy begins to shift. You start attracting people who match your light, situations that resonate with your truth. Jung observed this in many of his patients, that once they aligned with their authentic selves, their external world reorganized itself as if the universe were responding to their courage. If these words stir something in you, share them with someone who might need to hear them. A friend, a relative, a colleague. Because messages like this create a ripple effect. They awaken others to the same truth, that real love begins with oneself. And remember, Jung didn't just teach us to let go of what hurts. He taught us to integrate every part of who we are: the light, the shadow, the dreams, the fears. True self-love isn't about perfection. It's about wholeness. Imagine your life as a great puzzle. Some pieces are radiant: your laughter, your talents, your kindness. Others are darker: your doubts, your anger, your grief. But Jung believed that you cannot complete the picture if you reject the darker pieces. Integration means accepting every part of your being, even the ones that scare you. Take a deep breath. Ask yourself, what part of me have I been rejecting? Maybe it's the fear of failure, the sadness you've hidden, or the anger you've never expressed. You don't have to fix it, just recognize it. Because when you acknowledge it without judgment, it begins to lose its grip on you. It transforms from a source of pain into a source of power. Jung called this the gold in the shadow, the hidden potential that lies within the parts we try to hide. Now let's return to relationships once more, because this is where the lesson becomes practical. The people who enter your life are reflections of your inner state. If your relationships are filled with love and peace, it's because you have cultivated that within yourself. But if you find yourself surrounded by criticism, conflict, or confusion, it's not a curse, it's an opportunity. Something within you is asking to be integrated. Here's a practice Jung often encouraged. The next time someone frustrates you, instead of reacting, ask yourself, what in this situation reflects something within me? Write it down. Sit with it. The answer might surprise you. These reflections, uncomfortable as they are, help you reclaim pieces of your power that you once projected onto others. Every time you bring awareness to yourself, instead of blame, you strengthen your self-love. You build inner peace that no one can take away. And then comes synchronicity, one of Jung's most beautiful ideas. It's the mysterious alignment of events that seem too meaningful to be chance. When you release what drains you, life begins to flow in miraculous ways. You meet the right person at the right moment. The right opportunity appears just when you needed it. It's not coincidence. It's life mirroring your inner transformation. But to see these signs, you must trust yourself. And trust begins with love, with integrating your light and your shadow, your courage and your fear. So take another deep breath. Feel how everything we've talked about, energy, relationships, dreams, shadows, all point back to the same truth, that when you honor yourself, the universe honors you in return. If this resonates with you, imagine the ripple effect it could create if more people lived this way, aware, integrated, full of love instead of fear. And finally, return once more to your dreams, those quiet desires that refuse to die. Jung saw them as the compass of your soul. Ask yourself, what did I once want before the world convinced me it wasn't possible? What would I do if I weren't afraid? Write it down tonight. Let your heart answer honestly. You don't need a plan, just the courage to listen. Because every great transformation begins there, with a single act of remembering who you truly are. Just reconnect with that spark. Then, take one small step toward it this week. Draw something, read about that dream, talk to someone who lives it. Tell me in the comments what you chose. Jung would say you're listening to yourself, that deeper part of you that knows exactly who you are. So, what does self-love that no one can break look like? It's waking up, knowing you are enough. Not because someone tells you so, but because you feel it. It's choosing relationships that lift you up, not the ones that drain you. It's chasing your dreams, even if it's just one small step at a time. That's what Jung wanted for you, an authentic life. Let's take one final pause. Breathe deeply. Imagine your life filled with that kind of self-love. How would you feel? What would you change today? Don't answer out loud, just feel it, because this isn't the end, it's the beginning. And if this moved something inside you, subscribe and turn on the bell. Let's close with a quick reflection. Jung taught us that self-love is not an external gift, but an inner journey. Listen to your unconscious. Integrate your shadow. Let go of what no longer serves you, and follow your dreams. Every step makes you stronger, more yourself. And the message I want you to take with you is this: stop searching outside for what you already have within. You are enough. You always have been. Now live it. Before I go, one last invitation. Share this video with someone who needs this message. Leave a comment about what resonated with you the most, or what you're going to change today. Your words inspire others and help this message reach farther. If you haven't yet, like this video and subscribe. Together, we can build a community where we all dare to truly love ourselves. Thank you for being here, for listening, for being part of this. See you in the next video. Remember, change begins with you, and the world needs your light. I'll be waiting. Being alone is never the real problem. What truly hurts is feeling lonely while in your own company. Because genuine loneliness is not the absence of people. It is the absence of your own presence. Carl Jung perceived this during his own inner exile, when, amid life's noise, the only constant companion he had was his own mind. And within that stillness, he discovered the answer. Loneliness is not a sentence, it is a mirror. Yet why do so many collapse inwardly the moment they are alone? Why does silence summon the darkest thoughts, the coldest emptiness, the heaviest anxieties? Perhaps it is not solitude that wounds, but the disconnection from the essence of one's own life. Because it has never been about having someone beside you. It has always been about being whole. You might receive endless messages, fill your days with plans, be surrounded by faces, and still feel hollow. Or you might spend an entire week without uttering a word to anyone, and yet remain in perfect peace. The real problem is not solitude itself, but the inner noise we carry when we do not know how to inhabit it. Jung observed that the soul withdraws, not to abandon the world, but to return with clarity. And you, where do you go when everything falls silent? Most flee that moment. They turn on music, scroll endlessly, call someone, do anything to avoid simply being with themselves, because they fear themselves, because they have never met themselves, because they cannot exist without constant stimulation. And therein lies the trap. The more you run from silence, the more enslaved you become to what is outside you. You seek constant approval, instant attention, forced company, all to escape the very emotions you should be quietly observing. Jung never longed to flee from the world. He sought instead to enter it with composure, not reactivity. And composure is born only in silence, in the discipline of sitting with yourself without screens, without masks, without pretexts. Yet no one teaches us this. We are conditioned to perform, to distract ourselves, to appear always accessible. We are told that being alone is sadness, that you need someone else, that without another, you are incomplete. And so we beg for attention instead of cultivating presence. To learn to be alone is not to isolate yourself. It is to encounter yourself. It is to discover within a place of safety, a space that does not collapse when others leave, a ground that does not rely on applause, messages, or promises. Because when you know how to be alone, you stop begging for company. You no longer settle for empty relationships. You no longer cling to those who bring you nothing. You no longer avoid silence for fear of hearing your truth. And in that moment, when you finally befriend yourself, the miracle happens. You are no longer alone. You are with yourself, which is, in essence, the most real and most forgotten bond of all. Jung understood that the most powerful person is not the one who controls crowds, but the one who can remain alone and not destroy themselves in the process. Perhaps this is why you do not advance, do not connect, do not heal. Because every time you are with yourself, you look for the nearest exit. But that escape does not save you. It only delays the inevitable meeting with your most honest reflection. You were not born knowing how to inhabit yourself. You were taught to meet expectations, to look outward, to seek approval. But very rarely were you taught to look inward, to sit with yourself without judgment or haste. That is why, when real solitude comes, you do not know what to do with it. You do not know how to hold that silence, how to observe your mind without wanting to shut it down, how to stay with yourself without needing to distract or numb. Jung understood that an undisciplined mind is a man's greatest enemy, that suffering comes not so much from what happens outside, but from what we allow to happen inside without awareness or guidance. And if you cannot be alone, you become addicted to others, not out of love, but out of need. And when you are with them, instead of sharing yourself, you use them to avoid facing yourself. You do not seek connection, you seek distraction. That is why many relationships fail, not because of the lack of love, but because they are built from emptiness. Two people who cannot be with themselves expect the other to give them what they have never cultivated within. That is not love. It is emotional dependence. And when that dependence breaks, you not only lose someone, you lose your center because you had placed it outside. That is when the densest loneliness appears, the one that feels like a loss of identity. Jung's philosophy offers a powerful idea that a wise person is never truly alone because they carry their own universe within. And that universe is not made of noise or promises, but of conviction, values, and presence. Learning to be alone is returning to yourself. It is asking, without fear, what you really need, what you have been avoiding, what inner voices you have silenced for fear of what they might reveal. And when you dare to listen, at first they hurt. They are critical, judgmental, fearful, insecure. But little by little, if you do not run, something else emerges. A calmer, wiser, firmer voice. The one that has always been there, waiting to be heard. That voice is you. Not your ego, not your masks, not your wounds. You, without adornments, without filters. And when you finally reconnect with that voice, solitude begins to transform. It is no longer punishment, it becomes companionship. Because the real problem was never loneliness. It was the emptiness of meaning. It was the disconnection from your purpose, your emotions, your essence. That is where the real work begins. Not in forcing yourself to feel fine, not in pretending it doesn't affect you, but in building a relationship with yourself so solid that your emotional state no longer depends on others. Jung wrote that within each of us lies an impregnable fortress, a citadel that cannot be destroyed by anything external. But you only find it when you stop seeking outside what can only be built inside. And yes, there will be days when the silence feels uncomfortable, moments when you want to escape. But if you stay a little longer, if you breathe and remain, you will discover that the peace you seek is not in someone else, but in you. That is the difference between being alone and feeling alone. One is a fact, the other an interpretation. There is a freedom that only solitude can give, a freedom that does not feel like euphoria, but like calm. It is not a shout, it is a deep sigh that comes when you stop trying to fit in. Jung found that freedom in the midst of life's battles, betrayals, and decisions that shaped destinies. But his true battle was never against external enemies. It was against his impulses, his disordered thoughts, his emotions without direction. And if he, with all his knowledge, understood that the only real mastery was mastery of the self, why do you still believe that being alone means being incomplete? Society bombards you with images of couples, shared success, ideal friendships, but no one speaks of the value of intimacy with yourself, of that silent hour when you understand things no one could ever explain. When you learn to be alone without feeling lonely, it's not that you no longer need anyone, it's that you no longer define yourself through anyone. And that completely changes how you relate. You stop demanding, begging, manipulating. You start sharing from abundance, from a space within you that is full, not to fill voids, but to expand, to enjoy, to be without depending. And that emotional maturity only arrives when you cross the discomfort of solitude, when instead of avoiding it, you make it your ally, your teacher, your mirror. Because in solitude, you can see how much noise you carry, how much of what you do is for the need to be seen, loved, or accepted, and how much is the genuine expression of your essence. In that space appears a vital question. If no one were watching, would you still do the same? If no one applauded you, would you still walk that path? If you were completely alone, would you be happy with who you are? The answers hurt, but they free you, because they show you to what extent you have been betraying yourself, postponing your authenticity out of fear of judgment, abandonment, or discomfort. And once you see it clearly, you can no longer go back. You can no longer keep running from yourself, because you have understood that the only constant in this life is you. And if you do not cultivate that relationship, no other can last for long. Jung wrote that the soul grows stronger in the solitude of its own company, like a fire that shines brighter in the dark. And you are no exception. You can be that fire too. You can also shine from within. But you must stop constantly seeking outside. You must give yourself that space, not once a week, not only when you feel overwhelmed, but every day, even if only for a few minutes, even if at first it feels uncomfortable. Because every time you choose to remain with yourself, even briefly, you are repairing something inside. You are remembering who you are, without influence, without pressure, without noise, and little by little, what once seemed unbearable becomes familiar, and over time, it becomes your refuge. The noise of the world is constant, and many use it as anesthesia. They fill themselves with voices, plans, movements, just to avoid stopping. Because in the pause appears the question they fear the most. Did I truly choose the life I am living right now? That question, simple yet unsettling, carries the weight of every decision, every compromise, and every path you have taken. Being alone, truly alone, gives you the perfect stage to ask questions like this, the kind you usually avoid in the noise of daily life. Solitude removes the distractions, the excuses, the comfortable lies. It places you face to face with yourself, unmasked and unadorned. And it is there, in that raw and unfiltered encounter, that the true work of reconstruction begins. Many people fear that mirror. They fear what it might reveal. The truth that for years, maybe decades, they have been living not for themselves, but for the approval of others. They have been bending, adjusting, shrinking, performing, simply to fit in, to be liked, to survive. But if you can stay long enough in front of that mirror without turning away, something extraordinary happens. The same mirror that once accused you begins to offer you a possibility. You can still choose differently. Conscious solitude is not a sentence, not a curse handed down by fate. It is an open space, a fertile ground where you can plant something new. It is where you strip away the borrowed roles you've been wearing and meet the unaltered truth of who you are. In that silence, you are free to rebuild, not from habit or fear, but from a place that is authentically yours. Carl Jung understood this not only as a psychological theory, but as a lived necessity. He often withdrew from the world, even when influence and attention were within his reach. He knew that the mastery worth having begins within. If a person cannot govern themselves, cannot master their own impulses, fears, and desires, then they have no right to try to govern anything or anyone else. The discipline he cultivated was not a cold detachment. It was a warmth, a clarity, and a peace, born from no longer being a slave to mental chaos. That inner stillness allowed him to act with purpose, fairness, and humanity. When you learn to truly inhabit yourself, you no longer depend on the world's applause. You stop performing. You stop chasing validation. Your presence steadies, your mind clears, your decisions become deliberate and fully your own. People notice, even if they cannot explain why. The one who does not fear solitude is untouchable, because they cannot be bought with companionship, seduced into self-betrayal for attention, or manipulated by the fear of being abandoned. They carry within them something unshakable, something no one else can give or take away, and from that independence, relationships transform. You connect not out of desperation, but from the joy of sharing. You love without the silent bargain of, "I need you to make me whole." This shift changes the very texture of your bonds. When you are not afraid of being alone, you are also not afraid to say no, to walk away, to protect your peace. You begin to understand that returning to yourself is not a retreat. It is a ritual, a compass you can follow through every season, every loss, every crisis, and you know without question that you will be there for yourself. That knowledge is rare. It is a form of power that few dare to claim. Solitude, when embraced consciously, becomes a kind of spiritual training. It tests you, shapes you, and strengthens you. Each time you survive a night of darkness alone, you emerge with a deeper strength you didn't know you had. Carl Jung wrote that the soul is fortified in retreat, that the mind sharpens in stillness, and that only in the vast emptiness within can a true and lasting direction be found. That direction does not arrive as a command from the world. It emerges quietly from within, from the part of you that only speaks when you have the patience to listen. And in that quiet, you realize a truth that feels like coming home. You were never truly alone. You were simply distracted, scattered, and distant from yourself. Now, you are finally returning. You begin to see that real companionship is not measured by how many people surround you, but by the quality of your own presence with yourself. Perhaps your whole life you have been trained to see solitude as failure, strangeness, or weakness. But now you know, being alone can be the bravest and most necessary act of your life. In a world that glorifies noise and demands constant visibility, you choose instead to stop, to breathe, to listen, not to the voices outside, but to the one you have silenced within. You listen to your body's fatigue, your mind's restlessness, your heart's unspoken grief. You hear the dreams you postponed, the truths you buried, the wounds you refused to touch. This listening, small yet profound, changes everything. When you can sit with yourself without fear, without anxiety, without the masks you've worn for survival, you reclaim the dignity and peace you once traded for approval. It is not about rejecting the world or isolating yourself in bitterness. It is about building an inner foundation so solid that your well-being no longer hangs on the fragile thread of another person's presence. Jung believed that all we need for a complete and meaningful life already exists within us. But to find it, we need silence, courage, and discipline. 3 things modern life tries to strip away. So the next time you feel the ache of loneliness, resist the impulse to run. Resist the urge to fill your hours with noise. Stay, breathe, watch what rises to the surface. Let yourself feel it without flinching. Because right there, in that discomfort, a door opens. A door to a version of yourself that does not depend on applause, distractions, or the unpredictable tides of conditional love. On the other side of that door is freedom. And once you cross it, you can no longer go back to living the old way. You no longer give yourself away to avoid emptiness. You no longer keep yourself endlessly busy just to avoid hearing your own thoughts. You stop running because you have learned that your own company is not a prison, but a home. Learning how not to be lonely while alone is an art. Like all art, it requires patience, practice, and devotion. It asks you to replace judgment with compassion, to speak to yourself as you would to someone you deeply love. There will be days when it feels easy, and days when you fall back into old patterns. But each time, you will return to yourself a little faster. Each time, the silence will feel less like emptiness and more like a welcome embrace. One day, without realizing it, you will notice that your favorite place in the world is simply being with yourself. Not because you have stopped loving others, but because you no longer lose yourself in them. You know that as long as you are fully present within, you will never be truly alone. The world will keep demanding your attention, urging you to be reachable, responsive, and endlessly available. But you will have learned something greater. the sacred power of stopping, of listening, of honoring the life within you. And if the noise of the world ever pulls you away again, remember, nothing out there can silence the voice you have awakened. You only need to return to it, always, without fear. And perhaps, in learning to stay with yourself, you will discover the most important truth of all. You were the home you were searching for. Thank you for staying until the end. If this message resonated with you, if it touched you at some deep point, subscribe so we can continue building this space where silence also has a voice. And tell me in the comments, what is the hardest part for you about being with yourself? And what are you learning in the process of inhabiting who you are? Your experience might help someone who still feels lost. The difference between wanting and being obsessed. Everyone says they want success. Everyone claims they want to change their life, reach their goals, build habits, wake up early, eat well, train, study, read, improve. But how many truly mean it? How many are genuinely obsessed with achieving it? The truth, as Carl Jung would say, is uncomfortable. Most people desire results without paying the price. They crave the reward, but despise the routine. They want the trophy, but avoid the training. And that's where the real difference lies. The one who is truly obsessed with discipline does not negotiate, does not ask whether they feel like it. They simply act. When you become obsessed with discipline, your mind stops seeking excuses and starts finding solutions. You stop waiting for motivation and start acting with determination. You no longer let your emotions control you. You train them. You stop asking, "What if I fail?" and instead ask, "What must I do to master this?" This message is for those who are tired of betraying themselves, for those ready to stop trying and start committing. It's time to stop wishing and start being obsessed with discipline. Because only when discipline becomes your obsession does your life transform forever. Understand the power of discipline as your secret weapon. Most people chase success, hoping to find a shortcut, a path without effort, without sacrifice, without discomfort. But as Jung would remind us, the true path always demands the death of your old self. The real winners understand that discipline is the longest shortcut, the real shortcut. And once you see it that way, everything begins to make sense. Discipline is not a prison. Discipline is freedom. It sounds paradoxical, but listen closely. The undisciplined person is a slave to their impulses, their laziness, their fears, their need for instant pleasure, their "I don't feel like it today." But the disciplined one is free. Free because they don't depend on motivation. Free because they don't fear repetition. Free because their progress no longer depends on moods. When you become obsessed with discipline, you realize you're not giving up joy or happiness. You're giving up chaos. You're choosing order. You're choosing clarity, structure, and purpose. You're choosing results. Discipline is raw power, because with it, you can take any dream, no matter how impossible it seems, and turn it into a concrete project, then a tangible goal, and finally, into your new reality. You don't need to be a genius or be lucky. You just need to be consistent, determined, and loyal to yourself. And that's what daily discipline is. Every time you act despite not wanting to. Every time you follow your routine, despite your mind's excuses. Every time you do the right thing without anyone noticing. You're creating something sacred. Self-respect. And that self-respect becomes an inner force, a power that lifts you when you fall, that pushes you when you want to quit, that reminds you, "I am not like the rest. I have discipline." It shows in your energy, your words, your posture, your results. Discipline is not something you do one day and forget the next. It's something you choose daily, even when it's hard, even when no one's watching, because you've understood that the life you dream of doesn't depend on luck or talent. It depends on your capacity to do what must be done every single day, with or without desire. So yes, discipline is your secret weapon. It doesn't shine like charisma or stand out like talent. But while others burn themselves out trying to shine quickly, you're becoming someone who cannot be ignored. Because a man, a woman, a young person with discipline holds in their hands the power to create any destiny. Make discipline your new identity. The reason most people fail isn't because they lack goals. It's because they still see discipline as something external, as a task, an obligation, a burden. But here's the truth that changes everything. Discipline isn't something you do, it's something you are. When you become obsessed with discipline, you stop saying, "I'll try to be disciplined," and begin saying, "I am disciplined. I am the kind of person who follows through. I do what I said I would do, no matter how I feel." See the difference? You're no longer pretending to act disciplined. You're becoming it. And that changes everything. Because as Jung taught, identity is the foundation of transformation. If you see yourself as weak, lazy, or inconsistent, you will continue to act that way, no matter how much you try to change. But when you shift your inner narrative, when you begin to see yourself as someone who honors their word, who is committed to growth, everything aligns. Your choices, your actions, your destiny. Discipline is not just what you do when you wake up. It's what you decide to be every single day. So ask yourself, who am I when no one is watching? Am I my word or just my excuses? Make your new identity so strong, so clear, so unwavering, that acting with discipline becomes as natural as breathing. Become obsessed with your routine. Every habit matters. People overestimate big decisions and underestimate small ones. Yet true power lies in the everyday, in the unseen moments, in what you do when no one applauds. Your daily routine is your future reality. Do you want to know where your life will be in 6 months? Look at your routine today. Do you want to know if you'll reach your goal? Look at what you do every morning. And here's where obsession enters the picture. Because if you want extraordinary results, you need a routine that matches that desire. A routine that is not negotiable. Not something you do if you have time, but something you do because you must. Want to read more? Schedule it. Want to get in shape? Treat it like a sacred appointment with yourself. Want to build a business? Dedicate hours to it as if it were already paying you. Build a routine so disciplined that your emotions no longer have a vote. And here lies the secret. It's not about doing a lot. It's about doing the same thing over and over until failure becomes impossible. Every small habit you form, waking up early, exercising, studying, planning, is a declaration of war against your lazy self. Each disciplined action is another brick in the empire you're building. So yes, become obsessed with your routine. Make it beautiful. Make it strong. Make it so firm that it holds even on your worst days. Eliminate distractions as if your life depended on it. Engrave this truth in your mind. Discipline is built through focus, and focus is destroyed by distraction. You can have the best intentions, the clearest goal, the most brilliant plan, but if your attention is divided, if your environment is cluttered with interruptions, if your mind has no space to concentrate, you will fail. Not because of a lack of talent, nor because of a lack of ability, but because of an excess of noise. Distraction is the silent killer of dreams. It doesn't shout, it doesn't push, but it steals from your time, your energy, your vision. And when you finally notice, you no longer have the strength or clarity to continue. Now let me ask you something directly. How much control do you have over your environment? Are you the master of your decisions or the slave of your impulses? Here's a truth Carl Jung would remind us of. You don't need more time. You need fewer distractions. Many claim they have no time for their goals, yet spend hours on gossip, television, and empty entertainment. But someone obsessed with discipline never allows that. A disciplined mind is cared for, like an athlete cares for his body. It doesn't consume garbage. It doesn't waste energy on trivialities. It eliminates what's unnecessary as if it were at war, because it is. You are at war with your complacent self, the self that settles, that drifts, that justifies. And in this war, your weapons are clear: silence and focus. Clean your environment deeply. Silence the people who drain you. Create sacred spaces where you can work like a true warrior. You are not being cruel. You are being faithful to your vision. You are not being cold. You are being strategic. The world is filled with stimuli designed to hijack your attention. You cannot compete with that unless you take control. If you don't build barriers, the world will swallow you whole, and your discipline will wither. So from today on, repeat it like a mantra. Nothing enters my mind without permission. Nothing enters my schedule without purpose. And every time you say no to a distraction, you are saying yes to your higher self. Reward yourself, but only after the sacrifice. A disciplined mind isn't about living like a robot without emotion. It's about understanding a powerful truth. First, you sow. Then, you reap. The problem with most people is that they want the reward before the effort. They crave rest without work, celebration without completion. But when you are truly devoted to discipline, you learn to earn. Yes, you can reward yourself. Yes, you can enjoy life, but only after keeping your promise to yourself. Every time you wake up early, when you don't feel like it, you earn self-respect. Every time you resist temptation, you strengthen your self-worth. And that respect, that confidence, is worth more than any instant gratification. Because the real reward isn't the junk food after the gym or the distractions after studying. The real reward is looking in the mirror and saying, "Today, I kept my word. Today, I became who I said I'd be." And that, my friend, is priceless. So yes, reward yourself, but let your rest be earned, and your pleasure be the consequence, not the excuse. Make every victory meaningful, for it was born out of commitment. And when you become obsessed with discipline, your favorite reward becomes your own progress. Visualize your future with such disciplined clarity that it becomes inevitable. Every great transformation begins in the mind. If you cannot see it, you will never live it. And when you are devoted to discipline, you no longer leave your future to chance. You design it. Close your eyes and see yourself every morning, fulfilling your routine with precision. Imagine achieving your goals with the certainty of someone who has already succeeded. Feel what it's like to live with energy, pride, and absolute focus. Visualize the life you want so vividly that acting with discipline feels as natural as breathing. Because here lies the secret. What you repeatedly imagine, your mind begins to accept as reality. And if you hold that vision with emotion, intensity, and clarity, sooner or later, you will act accordingly. You are not dreaming. You are programming. You are shaping a new identity, reminding yourself each day who you wish to become, until you become that person. When you visualize with intention, the psyche begins to choose differently. The one who sees himself strong chooses to train. The one who sees himself disciplined chooses to persist. The one who sees himself successful acts accordingly. This is not magic. It is focus, conviction, and the daily decision to see your best self until it becomes impossible not to reach it. So repeat it to yourself every morning. I am already that person. I am discipline. I am focus. I am results. Let every day be one step closer to that vision already alive within you. Don't stop until discipline becomes your way of life. Now imagine this for a moment. It's dawn. There are no applause, no cameras, no eyes watching you. Only you and a choice. The same choice that forged champions, leaders, visionaries, ordinary people who decided to become extraordinary. The choice, rise or surrender. In that seemingly insignificant instant, your destiny is defined. Because success doesn't arrive in grand, glorious moments. It's born in the small decisions you make when no one is watching. It comes when, even tired, you choose to move forward. When, even broken, you choose to stand tall. When, even afraid, you obey your vision instead of your emotion. That is what Carl Jung called unbreakable discipline, the alignment of your actions with your higher self. When discipline becomes your natural state, you stop waiting for life to give you something. You start building it, brick by brick, day by day. While others complain, you act. While others procrastinate, you execute. While others rest, you sow. While others doubt, you train. Because you've learned what the modern mind forgets. Life gives you exactly what you are willing to work for, no more and no less. And that truth, as simple as it is harsh, is the foundation of freedom. Because you no longer blame the world, your past, or your circumstances. You take control. You become the author of your story. Discipline isn't comfortable, nor is it popular, but it grants something infinitely greater. Dignity, inner peace, mental strength, and the pride of looking back and saying, I did it. I built it. I achieved it. Because I never gave up. And yes, there will be dark days. Days when you want to quit. When nothing seems to make sense. But when that happens, remember this. You didn't begin this journey out of emotion. You began it out of decision. You are not here for quick results. You are here because you got tired of living halfway. You don't keep going because it's easy. You keep going because it's necessary. So don't stop. Don't look back. Don't negotiate with your weakness. Don't make space for excuses. Make discipline your personal religion, your philosophy, your shield, your pride. Let every morning your mind awaken with one purpose. Today, I commit. Today, I advance. Today, I transcend. And when the fruits come, because they will, you will laugh, look back, and realize that every sacrifice was worth it. It was worth saying no. It was worth sleeping less. It was worth training, reading, studying, resisting, building, focusing. Because you didn't get there by accident. You got there because you were willing to pay the price. And now, the world will have to adapt to you, to your energy, your discipline, your standard. If this flame has already been lit within you, don't let it die. Protect it. Nurture it. Let it grow. Let it burn. Don't stop until discipline becomes your nature, until your name becomes a synonym for commitment, until your story inspires others to rise too. Because your best version isn't out there. It's within you, waiting for you to awaken it. And only discipline holds the key. Do it for yourself. Do it for your future. Do it because you will no longer accept less than what you deserve. Do it until it becomes inevitable. If this message resonated with you, subscribe to the channel, activate the notification bell, and join this community of people who are transforming themselves through self-discipline and inner growth. Because, as Carl Jung taught us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life, and you will call it fate.